Let's say that you want to manifest, I want to manifest like a comfortable life experience where I don't have to worry about stuff and I am able to navigate my life with ease and like fun things happen to me, and then like you end up getting invited to a lunch and then So actually what it becomes down to is more about like paying attention to synchronicities, because it's just becoming aware of all of the magic that's already in your life. And oftentimes people get stuck in that phase of like not working through their own stuff, having expectations that it's just going to happen, and then when it doesn't happen, being like, well, that doesn't work. So again, I think it's more effective in thinking about the type of life you want to live, and then allowing the manifestation process to surprise you. Like, I was really stressed out about having a particular meeting, and I don't even know why I was stressed out about it, but I was getting ready for vacation, and like all this stuff happened, and I'm like, how am I gonna have time to pack and like all that other stuff? And then I said, you know what? I'm just gonna let it go. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out. Well, a half hour later, they called and they were like, oh, we have to cancel this meeting. We'll reschedule it when you get back from vacation. And I was like, thank you. So I have a lot of stuff like that happens regularly, where like a client will be like, oh, do you want like all these free pretzels? Because it's like a pretzel company or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. So like, but I'm not like the night before being like, oh God, I just really need 2 pounds of pretzels. I hope that I get, you know what I mean? So it's more of like being in that mode of like, confronting my challenges with you know what, I'll figure it out, and maybe if you can help me out, that's great. And then you just get surprised and delighted, and those lighter manifestations allow you to kind of develop a relationship with the universe that's a bit more fun. It doesn't have to always be about like death and darkness and, oh my gosh, to confronting fears and anxiety and like all this heavy stuff, because it'll get to a point like Brad and I had a funny manifestation where we had to terminate an employee, and it was like a crazy scenario. And we just like had this person's name, like it was just kind of in our house, like for a long time. And then the next day after we had terminated this person, another client contacted us and said, oh, I need you to onboard this person. They had the same exact name. We just laughed because it was like, oh, that's a synchronicity. And I think that you can manifest synchronicities, and that's also feeling like you're in the flow of life and that you're connected. So it becomes less about like, what can you do for me, universe? It's more of you're playing with the universe. You're in a dynamic with the universe. Synchronicity is the language of the universe, and synchronicity is one of my favorite things, because synchronicity is how I connected with my dad after he died. And what happened is I had a client, and I had an hour drive ahead of me, and then on the way home. So I always had 2 hours on the road. And after he died, I had this mix of music that probably had like 1,000 songs on it. And one out of the thousands of songs was the Paul Simon Father and Daughter song. That was just like my song, with him. And I'll never forget, I was on my way home and that song popped on. A truck passed me that said like Dan's Pest Control. And then I looked to the right, and it was like the year he was born. And the song's playing, and I'm like, oh boy, what is happening here? And I could just like feel him, and I just had this emotional connection. And so what happened was that felt so good that I started paying attention more and more. And then what I would do is I would like look stuff up. Like if I noticed like 888, 77, like I noticed certain patterns of numbers, and I would look up what they meant. And it always typically aligned with either what I was thinking or what I had going on. And so what I recognized was, wow, if I look for it, it's kind of always there. Because that's another really challenging part of being human, is feeling disconnected from the universe, and and just feeling like you're here completely alone, just this one person having this one experience, and no one else kind of knows what you're thinking and where you're at. So having those experiences, because most everybody I've talked to, whether you consider yourself highly spiritual or not, can describe a synchronicity that they've had. And the more I've learned and dug into synchronicity, I realized that it's always trying to communicate to us. And it's always meant to like guide us and reassure us and reaffirm. So the most important thing that you can do when you're developing your relationship with synchronicity is just notice. Notice the birds that pass your, if they're cardinals or whatever they are, look them up. Look at the other types of animals that kind of pass your way. Is there a certain number pattern that keeps coming up? Look up what that is. I found that to be one of the most fun things, and it really it helped me feel grounded from an internal place. So I wasn't looking for that external validation. I was getting it internally. So synchronicity is huge when it comes to relieving your anxiety too. It's important for you to recognize too that there are no negative synchronicities. It's all about awareness and it's never like, because this is a challenge too, is like, be like, oh my God, does that mean I'm sick or I'm dying, or like, is something gonna happen, and da 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 da. The synchronicities are never gonna lead you to that. Like it's just important to recognize that you take your mind there. Like you take your mind there. And when you kind of take your mind there, it's kind of like the same thing with like the coincidence, where when does this mean it's good or bad? You're the one that picks that.